So thank you for being here tonight. I'm really thankful that you all decided to join me and take some time out of your day to learn about some seasonal allergies. I know quite a few of your pets will hopefully benefit from some of the free talk that we're going to do tonight and things that you can actually do on your own that is very easy, very safe, and can benefit them quite a bit. So we're going to give you some tips and techniques on how to give your pet seasonal allergies the boot. So just a few housekeeping things. At the end of the presentation, we're going to go through your questions. So definitely use that chat box to ask questions throughout the presentation. I'm going to have you muted throughout the presentation, and at the end, I'll try to unmute you, but we'll make sure that I answer your questions too. So don't hesitate to type away while I'm talking, and I'll make sure we get everything answered. And if I don't have the answers, I'll make sure I contact you all with those answers. So just a brief introduction to who I am. My name is Dr. Katie Woodley. I've been a veterinarian now for about almost 10 years, which is incredible. I am a Colorado native. I was born and raised in Colorado Springs. I went to the University of Notre Dame for my undergraduate degree. And then straight from there, pretty much, I went to New Zealand for my veterinary program, which was amazing at Massey University. So I stayed there for a bit, worked for a few more years, and then I came back to Colorado Springs and worked at a small animal practice there. That's where I became acupuncture certified and absolutely loved that. So that was kind of my introduction into more of an alternative side of medicine. From there, I found a job up in Fort Collins that wanted a more integrative, holistic veterinarian. And so I accepted that position, and that's when I delved into the whole Chinese herbal medicine world. Became certified after a 2-year graduate diploma course and absolutely love it. It expanded my world. I love doing nutritional consults, acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, Western herbs, and adding that all into conventional. And most of the time we're using just the Eastern side of medicine, and we're achieving great results. So even though I'm located in Fort Collins, I do herbal medicine and phone consultations, ideally worldwide. That's how I want to grow it, because I want to make sure that every pet on this planet, regardless of location, has access to natural medicine. So that is my mission. So I love helping others and helping pets and making sure that we're having them live a healthy life for as long as possible. So tonight's content, what we're going to be talking about, which is why you're all here, is we're going to be talking about allergies. So what we call it in conventional medicine is atopy. So we're going to talk about what exactly is atopy. We're going to talk about some traditional treatments for allergies, which I have a feeling that's why you're all here, so you can hopefully avoid having to use those. And then what are the specific areas we can actually help support, so we can actually reduce those allergies and keep them from occurring, or at least lessen the severity of it and lessen the amount of times your pet has to endure that allergy. Because I don't know about you, but I have experienced hay fever, and it is awful. So I can only imagine what our pets go through when they're itching and scratching and they don't stop licking their paws. They must be feeling very awful. So we want to reduce that as much as possible for them. We also are going to talk about what supplements that you can start your pet on now. And also, if everything you're doing isn't working, or they're still flaring up and being irritated and it's just not good enough, what are some of the other options we have? Because we have a whole world of medicine in front of us, so we can grab and pick and choose from those areas to help them. And then of course at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to go through your questions and answers. So definitely just open up, let me know what you're thinking about, what questions you have for your own pets. This is definitely the time to utilize. All right, so what is atopy? So pretty much allergies are our immune system being exaggerated and inappropriate response to an external allergen. So kind of everything's going haywire. So essentially what's happening is it's either an airborne allergen that they're inhaling, or something is gaining entry through the skin, through a defective skin barrier. Maybe they have an irritation. Something's entering the body, and it's creating a cascade of events that's creating an inflammatory response. And then those cells are releasing histamine and other cytokines, and comes back up to the skin and creates an itchy response to the dog or the cat or the animal. And what happens then is that they're going to start scratching, chewing because it's so irritating. And then what results are skin infections, ear infections, things like that. So it's very similar to hay fever in people, but typically what we see in animals is they're going to get itchy skin versus sneezing and sniffling in people. We get runny eyes. Some dogs will get allergic conjunctivitis. That can be quite common. So that's a little bit similar between people and animals, but it's typically that itchy skin that they're going to get. So our goal is going to be to talk about how we can reduce those episodes and reduce the body's exaggerated inappropriate response to those allergens. So what are some of the signs of atopy in dogs? I hear a lot. This is one of the most common things I see in pets in practice. And one of the things I hear from pet owners is, you know, I just think my dog has an OCD problem. He's always constantly licking his paws. I think he just has OCD. But really what's probably going on is that he's having an allergic reaction. So he's sensitive to something, or she, to something in the environment. It could be a food sensitivity too, which unfortunately, we're going to talk a little bit about how the difference in those, but they could potentially have both, which is not ideal. So with atopy, this is going to be an environmental allergy. So we're not talking about food sensitivities right now. This is going to be in the dogs that are a little bit younger. So they have a young age of onset. Now it's going to typically be between 1 to 3 years of age. So our food allergic dogs or sensitive dogs are going to be a bit older. So that's going to be between like 5 to 6 years of age that we're going to see it. So they can still develop food sensitivities. I hear a lot. Older dogs can't. They definitely can. We also see food sensitivities in young dogs. So about 6 months of age or less. So those puppies that come in and they have, you know, gastrointestinal upset, they're having loose stool, they're really itchy, that's more likely a food sensitivity. Now the fun thing, not for the pet, but for the vet to figure out, is that it can be both. And so if they're having both, we're gonna see signs of both, and we're gonna see a mixture of some of the clinical signs that I'm gonna talk about. So typically environmental allergies are also gonna have a good response to steroids. Please don't use them if you're just trying to find if they have a response. There's other ways to figure out if this is an environmental allergy, but that's a traditional method of treating allergies, unfortunately. But they're gonna respond because it's gonna dampen down that inflammation. They're gonna feel a lot better. It seems like it's fixed, but it's not. It's just a symptom resolver. It didn't fix the underlying problem. And then we're also going to see chronic or recurring yeast infections in the skin and ears. So those ear infections that a lot of people think are mites, that black, yucky earwax that builds up, the ears are really sore, that's typically an environmental allergy that's happening. And dogs, most likely dogs, those are the most common, they have yeast on their skin and in their ears that live there naturally, but they're not in overabundance. And so what happens is when they inhale those allergens, they create that inflammatory cascade in their body. They get inflamed, they get red, they get warm, they get moist in their ears, and what loves moisture? Yeast. So they get a yeast infection, and then bacteria join the party, and it's just bad news all around. And then we have a vicious cycle that's set up. So when we start seeing those chronic recurring yeast infections that start occurring over and over again, that's the alert. Okay, there's something going on in the environment that your pet is sensitive to. These are also your front feet lickers. So the chronic, they're sitting there all night long. You just hear the slurping of them licking their feet, keeps you up at night. They're up all night. Their feet are all red and sore. So that's typically an environmental allergy. And usually for a lot of these dogs, this is the first sign we see. And it doesn't necessarily involve an infection. The key is to find these signs that your dog has a deficiency with its immune system, fix it so it doesn't progress into an infection. That is always my underlying goal with all these pets that are starting to show these symptoms. Support their immune system, reduce inflammation. Hopefully they never have an issue and everyone moves on with their happy life. So the other issues that come up with the ear flaps are involved. So this goes along with the ear infection. So it's typically on the inside of the ear. If the ear margins are involved, that usually is a sign that there's Sarcoptes mites that are involved. So that's a parasitic problem. That is not an environmental allergy. And when you treat that parasite, the problem goes away and it's fixed. Also, if your pet's chewing at its lower back area, so right over the hips, and it's constantly chewing, like something is biting it, that is usually not an environmental allergy, but we have a problem with fleas. Doesn't take a whole lot of fleas to cause a problem. I've seen one flea cause major issues for a dog, and I've seen dogs that don't have flea allergies. They were literally covered in thousands of fleas, which is awful, and they were not itchy at all. So it depends on their immune system. So, but if you see your dog chewing lower back area, so these are for the people that are in those areas where there's lots of fleas. So Texas, back east, more warm, humid climates, that's going to be your lower back area that they're chewing at. So not necessarily an environmental allergy. And also seasonality. So this is for the places that have seasons. Obviously, if your temperature is the same year round, this doesn't really apply. But when you have the 4 seasons, you usually find like spring and summer, you find the flare-ups of the allergies, dogs get hot spots and have a lot of issues. So that's a sign also that most likely we're dealing with atopy. All right, so here are some conventional treatments for allergies. I kept this page pretty blank and sad looking because I'm sad about it. So I like the exciting stuff that's to come, but I want to go through the conventional treatments. Why do we use these? Why are they still around when there's other things that we can do? We are progressing, which is great through medicine. We were coming up with new drugs that have less side effects, but there's still potential side effects with these medications. And they don't treat the underlying problem, which is the problem, major problem. We're suppressing the immune system to get rid of the symptoms, and we're not fixing the underlying problem. So number 1, steroids, prednisone, that it will work. I promise you, it works 100% to get rid of atopy or the inflammation and the itchiness. Your pet feels so much better, but it is not helping them internally. It is not fixing the problem. It's going to create more problems, and the amount of dogs that develop side effects from this medication is huge. So, and we'll go into it towards the end, but if your dog has side effects to steroids, it tells me a lot of information on where their underlying deficiencies lie, and we can actually support them through more natural medicine like Chinese herbs and things like that to fix their underlying deficiency. So if your pet's been on steroids, it doesn't mean that they're going to be hurt from them or they're going to have future issues, because we can actually support them naturally. Apoquel is a newer medication. Cytopoint and Apoquel go hand in hand. Cytopoint is an injection. It's kind of like the injectable Apoquel in a way. It works a little bit different, but they both also work on certain kinases and certain receptors to block inflammation. And so they're blocking something. So there are other things down those pathways that can be affected. It's not as broad spectrum and wide acting as a steroid, but they can lead to some serious problems. The number 1 thing we tell people to watch for when they're on Apoquel and Cytopoint for allergies is to watch for masses to form. So what we're doing is we're suppressing the body from being able to go around the body, the cells that send, like the little guard cells that look for cancer cells and squash them before they become a problem. This can actually suppress that from happening a little bit, which is a little bit scary. So if we cannot use these, ideal. They work amazing. They work within 4 hours of giving them. So they have been a huge relief for a lot of dogs. So I don't want to say conventional treatments are all bad. Like, we want our pets to feel comfortable. We don't want them itching. But I do want to emphasize that there are some side effects with this. There are other options. Topical therapy is a huge one. This I 100% use on both sides, because if we can get rid of infections, if we can reduce inflammation without having to give something orally, we're all winning. And then what we can do is we support the immune system, build up gut health, because a lot of the pets have a leaky gut, and that's why they have inflammation. We can get away with not having to use a lot of oral medications. So that's typically a starting point. So I put a picture there of some chlorhexidine wipes. So that's an antifungal, antibacterial wipe. Those work amazing. And they sometimes with other treatment options that we're going to talk about, you may not have to do anything further. Cyclosporin's another medication, Atopica. This is an older medication. It's actually used in humans for organ donors. So they suppress rejection of the organ. So I'm going to leave that right there because that can tell you pretty much that there's a lot of side effects that can be associated with that drug. This was used for those pets who didn't respond to prednisone. Obviously, they have major immune problems if they're not responding to a steroid. So I don't like to use that medication if we don't need to. I feel like there's a lot better options. Antihistamines, a lot of people will start with these. So Zyrtec, Benadryl, those typically work in about 60%, if that, of animals. So there's not a huge response to them, but we can actually use natural antihistamines from nature. So we'll go through that. And then antibiotics I stuck on there because most dogs with severe skin infections do end up going on antibiotics, which can affect their gut health too. So if we can stay away from antibiotics, that's ideal. So we just talked about side effects: prednisone, urinating, drinking, their increased appetite. Most of them can cause vomiting, diarrhea. Lethargy changes their behaviors. I've seen animals get aggressive, especially to their housemates. Not ideal. Compromised immune health, leading to increased risk of infections, increased risk of cancer. The list goes on. So let's talk about what our goal is. Our goal is to fix the underlying immune problem so the immune system's not ramped up. We don't want it to lead to excessive inflammation. We don't want it to lead to skin infections. We want to support the body so that it has a normal response when something foreign enters it. All right, what can we do? So how do we improve their health? So number one, let's feed a whole food species appropriate diet. So we'll go into that. Avoid toxins, allergens in the environment. There's so many toxins in our world. So if we can try to remove some of those, that'd be ideal. We can't remove all of it because we can't control what everyone does, but there's a lot of things we can do to help your pet process those toxins when they do come into contact with them, because their overall immune health will be strong. We can also vaccinate smartly. I'm not saying to not vaccinate. We can do it smartly though. That means doing titers and other things to make sure that we're not hurting them, but we're protecting them with those vaccines. And also avoiding unnecessary pharmaceuticals. So not using things like steroids when we have other tools in our toolbox that will help them. We can use supplements that's going to help boost their immune health so that when they do come into contact with something, they're going to be much better off fighting it off at a normal response. And then keeping your pet at an ideal weight. I put this in there because when they're overweight, there's more inflammation in the body. It increases their allergic thresholds and they're more likely to get itchy. So we do not want that, because if there's multiple things that they're sensitive to, they're going to break out in rashes more frequently, more often. So if we can reduce their load of inflammation in their body, that will help them. And then also we're going to talk about preventing parasites naturally, because that's another burden on the body when they come into contact with them. So feeding a species appropriate diet, real food is best, but an unbalanced real food diet is the worst that you can feed. You can feed the worst kibble-based diet as long as it's AFCO approved, and it will be better than feeding an unbalanced real food diet. So we can do a lot of harm with unbalanced diets, even with real food. So there's going to be different levels of food that we can feed, ranging from raw to home cooked to kibble diets. So what is best? It depends on your pet. It depends on your situation. If you need to feed a kibble diet, we can work together to find one that works best for your pet. It doesn't mean that you're harming your pet. You're doing the best that you can. I never want people to feel guilty or bad about having to feed a kibble diet. There are good kibble diets out there. If you can do a home cooked diet, even better, but let's make sure it's balanced. So how do you make sure it's balanced? You can work with a nutritionist. You can work with someone that's passionate about making sure that it's well balanced. You can get books. There's plenty of books also that have that if you're really interested in that. I have lots of resources. Also, a website called balanceit.com, which I've listed here, is a great website, and it shows you how to balance your pet's food for free. The other thing that's really neat that you can actually do is you can do a food allergy test. So NutriScan by Dr. Jean Dodds. So you can actually go onto her website and order the test, and they will send you a little rope bone for your pup to chew on, and you send it back, and they will tell you what your dog is sensitive to. And then we can formulate a diet around that. And that's going to tell us, okay, we need to avoid these proteins, we need to avoid these grains, we need to avoid whatever it comes back as. And we can formulate a diet that's going to suit your pet the best. Also, from an Eastern medicine perspective, if your pet tends to run really cold or has lots of inflammation, we can actually use the energies of the different foods to help balance the body. So that's a pretty neat thing also. Mentioned avoiding toxins and allergens. So this is huge. We can't control what people spray on their yards. We can't control what people use landscaping services. Toxins and chemicals are rampant in our environment. But what we can control is what we put into our pets, and also bathing them. Bathing them once a week is the best thing you can do if your pet has environmental allergies. You can pop them in the bath or put them in the shower, rinse them off once a week, use your therapeutic conditioning shampoos, leave-in conditioners if they have dry skin, and it's going to feel very soothing for their skin too, especially if it's inflamed. So this is a big thing. Once a week, it is not too often, it's not going to dry them out. And then also what you can do is when they come in from the outside, you can actually wipe them down with a washcloth and wipe off those external allergens. Wipe down their feet because they're going to be itchy, they're going to chew on their feet, and now they're ingesting the allergens they're allergic to. So if we can reduce their allergy burden, they're going to do really well. Also, feeding them foods that are organic, grass-fed meats. Those are going to have less pesticides, less chemicals, less hormones in them, and that's going to benefit their immune system also. With vaccines, having your vet do vaccine titers for the vaccines that's available for, there is no need to vaccinate them if they have antibodies to protect them against that disease. But that is important. If you're not vaccinating them for those diseases that are common, and you haven't run titers, you don't know if they're protected, and they can contract that disease and get really sick. So vaccines have a place, but titers are very important. So supplements, lots of supplements. They're going to help boost the body's immune system, reduce inflammation. So we're talked about natural antihistamine products, improving gut health. A lot of people that follow natural medicine have heard of leaky gut. This is huge. Our gut health is huge, not only for us, but for our pets. If we get leaky gut and we get inflammation in our gut, what's going to happen? They're going to eat foods. Those proteins are going to pass into their bloodstream, and that's going to interact with their immune system in an appropriate manner. That's going to kick off an inflammatory cascade, and now we're going to have a whole host of other problems, autoimmune diseases even. So if we can improve gut health, we can improve the entire body. That is the #1 area that I typically start with. Also, we want to support detoxification. If they're having issues, we want to support liver health. The liver is our big powerhouse for detoxifying the body. So making sure that we're using supplements and foods that are going to help that health. Milk thistle is huge, especially for the liver. And it's very good for the skin too. So we're going to be boosting the skin health naturally by doing all of these things and getting that anti-inflammatory effect. So nettle, this is a huge one. So this is a tonic herb. It's going to support the body. It has anti-inflammatory properties. It's going to actually help the immune system, so react in an appropriate manner to an allergen that they come into contact with. So it's a natural antihistamine from the plant world. Some animals do get a little more itchy when they first start on this medication. So what I typically have them do is reduce the dosage and then slowly increase it back to the effective dosage that's listed or that we recommend. And this is kind of like a homeopathic response, really. Nettle, if you get it, I don't know if you've ever come into contact with a nettle plant, but if you touch it without gloves on, it makes you super itchy. So in homeopathy, like cures like. And what we found is when you actually take that nettle, you break it down appropriately, and you ingest it, you get an antihistamine response, which is pretty amazing. And so Animal Essentials is a great company. They have really good products. This is one of the products that they do offer. They also have a seasonal support for skin allergy dogs. that has nettle in it. So the dose is on the back of the bottle. You can also use the natural plant in the environment too. You'd want to make sure it hasn't had any pesticides or anything like that on it, but it's a great product to use, especially for our allergic animals. Omega-3 fatty acids. This is huge. Now, some dogs have that leaky gut we just talked about. So we have to be a little careful introducing a high dose of fish oils to them, because the response that we'll see if they're not tolerating it is loose stool. Now, there are different types of fish oil with different brands. There's good brands, there's bad brands with anything. And some of those brands that pets don't tolerate, you're going to see loose stool, they're going to be burping, there's going to be all sorts of side effects. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, they don't tolerate fish oils. No, they just don't tolerate the type of fish oil. So I put a couple brands on this slide for you to take note of, because this is really important, making sure we're using the right brands. So they're sourcing the fish appropriately. That's huge. We don't want to deplete the oceans. And we also know that they're testing for chemicals that shouldn't be in that product. And we also know that they have the concentration of the fatty acids in there. So this is actually going to help disrupt the production of inflammatory chemicals within the skin. It's going to help you reduce the dosage needed for steroids or other conventional medications. Hopefully your pet doesn't need to be on those at this point. It's not going to work right away for an acute inflammation. So if your pet's in a flare, it's got red skin, it's itchy, this is going to do nothing for it right now at this point. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. So I recommend pets take it year round as long as they're tolerating it. If they're not, then we need to build up their digestion. But it's going to take at least 6 weeks for them to build enough omega-3 fatty acids in their body for you to see a difference. So some of the brands I've listed, Nordic Naturals, Carlson, Puritan's Pride, Thorn, those are a lot of the brands that you can get over the counter or online. There's other brands too that are great. So I just wanted to list a few. You want to make sure you're looking at the concentration of the EPA and DHA on the back of the bottle. So this is going to make sure this is the stuff that you want your pet to have. And the dosage roughly for the combination of that is 100 milligrams per kilo per day. You can divide that up. And then if you find that your pet doesn't tolerate it, start with half the dose and then build up to it. And we can also work on their digestive system and make sure that we don't have leaky gut. So quercetin and bromelain, these are a powerhouse together. So they're actually nicknamed, quercetin's nicknamed nature's Benadryl. So this is going to give you a much better response than using something like conventional Benadryl, like the pharmaceutical Benadryl. So this is going to work better. Usually plants work better because it has all of the compounds inside of them that work better with your body. So with conventional drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, they're taking the compounds that they think work, but they're losing all those other things that are part of that plant that actually have some beneficial properties. So that's why Chinese herbal medicine is amazing, Western herbal medicine. We see responses for the body that are huge. So I definitely think quercetin with bromelain is a huge one, and it's very safe. So quercetin is a bioflavonoid with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. It's going to stop free radical formation. It's typically found in foods. We get a lot of our quercetin from foods if you're eating a well-balanced diet. So leafy greens, tomatoes, berries, broccoli. Add in those leafy greens, add in berries, add in broccoli. Even if you're using a kibble-based food, lightly steam your leafy greens and lightly steam your broccoli. And that'll actually help bring out those nutrients a bit more, and it makes them more palatable for your pets too. Blueberries are great, and a lot of pets really like them. So it's going to help protect the skin health. And then bromelain, when it's combined, it's actually an anti-inflammatory enzyme. So it's found in pineapple, which is really delicious. So, but what you're doing is when you're eating pineapple, you're actually helping your body so that you're going to be less sensitive to potential allergens. It actually modulates the inflammatory process of what happens when our body comes into contact with something we may be sensitive to. So these two together are huge. I put a picture of a brand that most people can get online or in natural stores like Natural Grocers or Sprouts or Whole Foods, wherever you are. But a lot of times you can just find us online and have it shipped directly to you. So your dosage is going to be roughly around 10 milligrams per 10 pounds a day. And you're going to take that total dose for your pet and divide it. So say your pet's 50 pounds and you're going to give them 500 milligrams, but you're going to split it. So 250 milligrams twice a day. All right, essential oils. Most of you already know I love my essential oils. We talked about this on my last webinar. But what I wanted to talk about is what can you do naturally for fleas and ticks? Essential oils can play a big part for this. So we need to make sure they're pure therapeutic grade essential oils. There's a lot of companies great. Others that are really awesome, and they're really good for animals, and they're safe for animals to use. So definitely, if you have questions about what essential oils to use, let me know, because we want to make sure we're not going to hurt them. That's not the purpose of using these natural products. We don't want to hurt our pets. So benefits of essential oils. I've showed this before. There's a product called Purification. That's a Young Living product, and it's a blend of essential oils. And that's specifically useful for fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. It's also great to desensitize stinky dogs, also help your house cleaning. It smells delicious. It's great. So, but the benefits of essential oils is it's going to help support the immune system. They absorb it really fast, so every cell in the body is going to receive that essential oil within 20 minutes. It's a very, very powerful antioxidant. Has antibacterial properties, anti-inflammatory properties, it's anti-cancer. There are all sorts of things that essential oils can do. We want to make sure we're diluting them, and you also need to be careful around your cats. There are a lot of essential oils you can use around cats, but that's importance of using your pure therapeutic grade. So this is a flea prevention recipe. So if there is a large burden of fleas, there is a high chance that your pet could still get infected or infested with fleas. Hopefully this would reduce the burden. It is something you can definitely try before using things that are a little bit more toxic, like the topicals or the orals. I typically like trying this first, and then everything else that you're doing will help support their immune health. And hopefully the combination of all of that together, the flea will be like, oh, this isn't like eating a cheeseburger. This is like eating a piece of broccoli. I don't like it. So unless they really like broccoli, but I'm just giving you a little metaphor. So for the flea-free essential oil blend, you're going to take a couple drops of each of those essential oils. So 4 drops clary sage, 1 drop citronella, 7 drops peppermint, 3 drops lemon. You can also add in 2 drops of myrrh. And you're going to add it to 1.5 ounces of a base oil. So you can use either sweet almond oil, hazelnut oil. You can also use your coconut oil. You're going to mix them all up in a dark glass dropper bottle. Always use a glass bottle because plastics will absorb and break down with essential oils, especially with like your lemon and your citrusy type essential oils. And then you're going to apply a couple drops to the neck, chest, legs, base of tail. And you can also put a few drops on a bandana or a cotton collar. This is for dogs. Don't use it with cats. So there's my disclaimer. You can dose them about 2 to 3 times a day, but ideally you want to use it right before you go outside. Always start with the lower doses and make sure your pet tolerates it. If your pet's like trying to rub them off and run away and is not doing well, don't force it on them. So this is a tick recipe. So few different essential oils because they're a different insect. So we don't want them either though. So you can use geranium, rosewood, lavender, myrrh, that's sweet myrrh, that I don't know how to say that, opoponix, and bay leaf. So definitely take a picture of that recipe because that's another really good one that you can use. And a lot of times if you have fleas and ticks in the same area, what you can do is you can use your flea recipe in the morning, your tick recipe at night, and you can use them kind of not necessarily on top of each other, but kind of back to back on opposite ends. And just like the other one, always start with lower doses and work your way up. Make sure your pet is tolerating it. And you can also diffuse these blends without the oil. You don't want to put your oil in your diffuser, but you can diffuse the blends in your house, and you're going to get a benefit of hopefully preventing those fleas from establishing in the house, which is great. All right, what's another thing you can do for fleas and ticks? food grade diatomaceous earth. So this is awesome. So I'm pretty sure probably most of you have heard of diatomaceous earth if you're interested in holistic medicine or you're on the more natural side. But this is great, especially when you combine it with diet, essential oils. So what exactly is diatomaceous earth? So it's a natural product that's made up of fossilized remains of tiny aquatic organisms called diatoms. So composed of the cell walls, shells of single diatoms, it easily crumbles to a fine powder, which you can see there. So in fact, the composition of the diatom cell wall is biogenic silica. And so this is used in a lot of products. We've probably actually ingested it or been in contact with it at some point because it's used in a lot of things in gardens, human and pet foods, interestingly. But what it does is it acts as an insecticide because it absorbs the lipids or the fat layer from the waxy outer layer of the insect's exoskeleton. And this causes them to dehydrate and die of water deficiency. So you can actually take this and sprinkle a little bit of this throughout your pet's fur. And because it's a food grade, that means that it's okay for it to be ingested. And then you can sprinkle this through the carpet, leave it for 4 to 12 hours, and then vacuum it up. And you're gonna deter those fleas from establishing in your house. Ticks, not like, you don't have to worry as much about that. They don't typically like to live in our house, but fleas are very good at multiplying and exploding in population, and no one needs that in their house. So definitely start using that. There's a lot of good products out there. There's a lot of different options. If you have questions, just let me know. So I wanted to do a disclaimer with nutraceuticals, supplements. How do you know you're buying a good one? We talked about this last time. So unfortunately, there's not a good regulatory body for the manufacturing of these products. And so the biggest thing that we want to look for is making sure that they have, when they're a pet supplement, they have that NAS seal. So that seal that's on the left-hand top part of the slide, and that's the National Animal Supplement Council. And that's going to show us that those companies that put that seal on there are following a certain number of guidelines to ensure that their product is better quality. So that's important. The USP verified, so that's a dietary supplement, that goes on our human products. So making sure that that's on there will ensure that what's in it is in it and that it's going to be a better quality too. So that's a few things that you'd want to look for when you're looking at supplements. So what do we do? Okay, so we've gone through a few things. There's a lot of things that we can go through. So this is just a quick overview. But what do we do if your pet's still having an allergy problem? So these pups are sad. That skin looks really bad on that paw, really red, inflamed. I'm sure that dog is licking it. All right, we have acupuncture. Acupuncture works really well for allergy symptom relief. And not only is it helping with the symptoms, so it's going to reduce inflammation, but it's also going to change the inflammatory immune response in the body, which is pretty amazing. It's pretty powerful. There are certain points that we use when we're specifically using acupuncture for allergies that are kind of like bang for the buck points. So stomach 36, so ST 36, there's a picture there. That is right below the knee on the outside, kind of in the fleshy bit, right just below that knobby, we call it the tibial crest. That is a really strong immune modulator point. So you can actually apply pressure there for as long as your pet will tolerate it, gentle pressure, and that's going to help. It's not as strong as an acupuncture needle going in, but it can help. That's acupressure. And then also large intestine 4. I've got a picture of it on the bottom right. It can be, it's a little harder to tell, but that point is actually in between the dew claw and the first digit, so on the inside of the front paw. And so that's like between our thumb and our first finger, so that's that fleshy bit. I know when I press on mine, it's a little sore. So a lot of acupuncture points or acupressure points, when you find them, they're actually a little sensitive. So when you press on that one's actually a really good point for reducing inflammation in the nasal passages. So dogs that have chronic sinusitis, which means runny noses, inflammation in their face, runny eyes, it's a head master point is what we call it in acupuncture. So definitely use those points if you don't have access to an acupuncturist. It needs to be done by a veterinarian who's certified in acupuncture. Some animals respond after one treatment, and even during a treatment, I have seen that happen where inflammation dissolves before our eyes. That is incredible to see. You know it is working. But some animals take a few sessions before a response is seen. The great thing is there's no adverse effects. All right, other natural allergy treatment options. Okay, we've done all of that. We've got the food under control. We've got the supplements going in. We've reduced parasites. We're reducing the burden and the environment of allergen exposure, but your dog is still itchy. It is still red and inflamed. It still has a problem with its immune system, obviously. So what else can we do? We can use Chinese herbal medicine. Chinese herbal medicine looks at the whole body, looks for those imbalances, and it assesses, okay, where do we need to support the immune system? Where do we need to support what system is causing the whole body to be off? And we're seeing a cascade of effects. So we can use herbal medicine to rebalance the body depending on that patient. It is a very individualized treatment. And so that's why it is very important to work with a professional who is certified in this area of work. It doesn't help to go online and look for supplements to use, because a lot of times you might see a little bit of a response, but it's great to use an herbal formula that you know is going to work for your pet. So rather than wasting money, if you can find someone, fantastic. Definitely utilize that, because I have seen amazing things happen with using Chinese herbal medicine. There are also other supplements that are a little bit stronger that we can add into the mix that are prescribed by veterinarians. So standard process supplements are great for adding in also to boost the immune health, boost the gut health, get the reactions in the body working the way that they're supposed to. So there's a few other things that we can add in. There are also other supplements that we can do, green tea, there's other things that we can add in, but we just don't have enough time to go through. But the world is ours. There are a lot of things we can try, so your pet doesn't need to suffer. So definitely let me know if you feel like your pet just needs a bit of an extra hand and help before we get to that point where they're an itchy, scratchy mess, because then what we're doing is we have to go to our strongest natural medicine, fight the inflammation, fight the infections, and then start rebuilding everything. So it takes longer. So if we can get them going now before hopefully they have really bad flare-ups, before we get to summertime, and hopefully we can prevent them from flaring up, which is nice, because your pet feels better, you feel better, you spent less money, you don't have to go to the vet, now you can be outside more. So everyone wins in that case. All right, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna close this and I'm gonna see what questions you guys have for me. All right. All right, well, I'm not seeing anything from you guys, so hopefully that means that I covered enough and everyone's happy. So, but thank you again for all of you coming out and listening to what I had to say. So have a good evening and have a good night. All right, bye guys.